Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and video show which brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, and experience from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe so you won't miss a new episode. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted and privileged to have a conversation with Parul Soni. Parul, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Fritz.
Now, Parul, before we have a discussion, let me first introduce you to our audience. You are the founder and global managing partner of Think Through Consulting. Prior to that, you were working with EY and KPMG. And in all your years, you've had worked in over 54 countries with Fortune 500 companies, global alliances, industry associations, and more. You are also the board member of a number of organizations aimed to support the less privileged, also something I want to talk about. And you are the founder and secretary general of the Association for Business Women in Commerce and Industry. And if we have time, also want to talk about your own podcast because you not only are a guest of a podcast, but you also have your own podcast. So a lot to talk about. In the next half hour, Parul, where does this all start? How did you end up being the global managing partner of Think Through and being on all these boards? What triggered this?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Fritz, for inviting me for this, the brand called You. And I'm really excited to be with you because one, you're also an entrepreneur and the work which you have been doing. But my journey started at a very young age. And when I talk about my journey, it is really sometimes it was very hard because I come from a very small city or a town in India called Jaipur in Rajasthan. And that's where the journey started. I have changed many schools because of my father's transferable job. But that gave me really good, not only networking opportunity, but the opportunity to interact with many of my students, which was in school with me. So sometimes people don't realize when they stay in the same school, they're in the same lake. But
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, I was changing lakes and I was changing, various waters.
Yeah.
And today I have my alumni, or you can say student groups from various schools, and which has given me really good opportunity to progress. And that was a good point for me because not many people understand that from the beginning you learn to be with so many people and so many different students and fellow students as such. So that's the journey started. But also I also did small jobs when I was in school. For example, my uncle had a business of tire retrading, and so in my spare time, in my holiday seasons, I used to go to Mumbai,
Yeah.
and I used to deliver tires and for him. And that was an opportunity. Why I'm talking about is the entrepreneurial
Okay.
instinct.
Hey, Parul,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, you triggered me before we lose that opportunity. I was
Yeah.
surprised that you saw something as an opportunity, as a benefit, where I think a lot of people in your situation would see that as something negative. In a sense, if you move from various schools to schools, I get this classic image, what you often see in TV programs or films, where the new kid on the block is going to be has the burden of having to fight into the new community again. But it's interesting that you actually presented this as an opportunity for yourself to build your network rather than seeing it as something that you continuously have to fight for something new.
Yeah. And Fritz, it's not one or two schools, nine schools.
Nine.
So I have, you can say the fraternity or the alumni who call me. There was a 25th anniversary of our school, and I got invitation from 4, 5 schools and say that, you have studied with us, come back and, we'll celebrate and all that. So that was today in this entire global world when these all these students have moved from India to various parts of the world. That's my network today. They recognize me and they are friends and they are then you have the first name advantage with them, and how Indians are everywhere. I should not say that because it's a
Yeah.
community which is everywhere in the world. So that was my first, school opportunity. Then the opportunity with my uncle, deliver tires in Mumbai. And I should admit now that I was an underage driver, because the thinking was that I now realize that maybe I will not let my children do that. But I was doing it just because that, there was a need. And at that time, I think the regulations were not so tight per se. So that was my first entrepreneurial, you can say geek. So to do that. And second was my family owned some taxis, and in my and the time when there were no drivers, sometimes I used to pick that duty. So today, I'm the global managing partner and doing so many things on the boards and all. These are things which are very, very important, Fritz, for life, because this gives you lessons, how humble you are, how to talk to people, how to narrate your story, and the thinking, and also learn from people, because I'm very, very people centric person as a leader, because I want to understand and see what's happening in people's lives, so that I can understand and mold. So from driving taxis, then moved to selling credit cards. I have sold billboards. I can talk about branding, event management in terms of events which we have done at my young age. In my college, I used to be in the debating society and do a lot of work for the society as such, raising money for the society. And in college, because I come from St. Stephen's in Delhi, which is the best in the world as of now in this part of South Asia or Southeast Asia.
Okay.
So it was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just wondering if this entrepreneurial spirit, this curiosity, which you're clearly demonstrating, this love for people, is that something you have, or is it something you can learn? Because also the audience listening to you want to know what your secret is, how you were able to get all those invitations to come back to grow your network.
Yeah, correct. So Fritz, I think it is very, very, you can say, intrinsic to you, and it comes with your family background and the family interactions and the family which you live with. Because what happens is I see a lot of people are very shy in talking. And I can tell you that, if I know the work which I do now, but if I go in a conference, when I do a lot of public speaking, end of it, if there are 500 people in a day, I know maybe 450 of them. Because when I speak, I go and in advance to understand what they want to listen and all that. So the thinking is, it is also internal, that I am more of a people's person, to see that, more want to learn from people, how things are and all those kinds. So it's very all that. And that's a journey, which you spoke about, from Save the Children to, KPMG, to Ernst & Young, now to TTC. And today with TTC has given, the Think Through Consulting has given birth to many organizations, like ABWCI, which is Association for Business Women in Commerce and Industry, which is now world's largest platform for women entrepreneurs.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming the audience will know what EY is and KPMG, but Think Through Consulting. Maybe explain a little bit what Think Through Consultancy does, why did you found out?
Yeah. So Fritz, Think Through Consulting is a venture which we are a professional service firm, as you have the EY, KPMG, Deloitte, and PwC. It is the first firm which has gone global from India. Earlier, all the firms that you can name, PwC, KPMG, Deloitte, or EY, or Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, and many others which you see as strategic firms which are working on the whole strategy space, have all come from India and started their operation, but they were not registered in India and then gone global. So they were all from the global north, they came to global south. Think Through Consulting has gone from global south to global north. We have offices in India, Bangladesh, Nepal, UAE, Singapore, and recently we have just started our operations in Netherlands, in Rotterdam. So our ambition is that we as a firm wants to have more offices, more partners across the world, because that the Indianness or the Indianness of the consulting, because if you look at globally, if you combine the big four, there are around 500,000 employees in these big four. I can bet that 60% of the entire lot would be Indians, as such, because their back offices are in India and others. So they're employing Indians. So the whole thinking was, why not we start and take the control and work together with the people and help the country to progress and have the brand India all over the world. So that was the whole Indianness, or the whole thinking of creating a brand. So we work with multilaterals, bilaterals, corporate foundations, companies, governments, and the whole work is more on impact. So we are into impact consulting.
Yeah, okay, that's what I wanted to ask.
So that's
general consulting. Yeah, it's not just general consulting you provide; it's very specifically focused.
Very focused.
ESGs.
Yes, we are very focused. We are into development sector consulting. We are into ESG, climate change, sustainability, carbon, net zero, all what you are hearing today. So we have got, you can say now hundreds of people who have joined the firm with our partners. The model is very, very cooperative, that we are like partners we are all like a cooperative of firm.
Mm-hmm.
All these partners own the equity, and this is how we are spreading our wings all over the world. So our thinking is that this form of a consulting firm, will be successful in the time to come, because we will garner more support from governments and also various stakeholders, who are working or who we are serving. And that's the whole thing. And whoever works with us, and the commitment is we get repeat clients. So nobody leaves us and neither we leave. And I'm praying to God that this stays with us for life. And that's the journey which we are in.
Yeah. This also explains why you have your SDG pin on your lapel, I guess.
Yes. I should now show you.
Yes. Okay.
So goal number 17 is very, very important.
Collaboration.
Collaborations and partnerships, because I mean that there is no competition. I sometimes go to our competition and say that let's collaborate, let's work together. And, why can't we be together? So the other person takes a minute to think that he's coming and saying, okay, let's work together. But the thinking is, today, everybody is so unique. My wiring system is so unique than yours. So the thing is, we are all unique. We are unique individuals. If we put our you can say the numbering, our DNA is so different. So the thinking is that why not take the advantage of all this? And
I like
this is the advantage of the collaboration.
Yeah, I like your thinking, because if you are in a competitive mode, you very much look at, do you have unique value propositions? What sets us apart? And your take is, because we're unique, we can collaborate.
Yes. We are all very, very unique. And the thinking is, Fritz, that, when you look at the whole thinking of it, if you start thinking of competition, you get negativity. Yeah. And when you think of negativity, you can body assets work differently, and you start thinking negative. Okay. So my thinking is, let's go positive and think about that. How can we collaborate and create more opportunities for collaboration and partnership?
Okay. Now, how and why did you draw that conclusion? Because this is a very fundamental mindset or a mind shift. And given the background you just described, that's not their DNA. They have a different background. So what made you realize that this is going to be a way forward?
Yeah, because the thing is, one, if you look at, we have started now, and you have to understand that all the firms have been there in the market for 50, 60, 70, 100 years. I don't have 100 years. I can say I have maybe 30, 35, 40 years if I stay that much. But the thinking is, if we compete, we will waste time in competing. And the time is very short. If you look at if you read about our existence and how we are moving with 1.5 degrees to 2 degrees and all that, we don't know how many years we have. So let's not waste time, and let's have the opportunity to work and understand people, understand the ways they are. So that's my inner self of cooperation and partnerships and collaboration. So that was my real, you can say, the background to say that let's build up. Let's not go down and start building. And
okay, but is this
start from
something
here much better.
Is this a gradual awareness, or was it an epiphany to have that mindset?
No, it's a gradual awareness. The thing is that, I was not like this. I also felt that there is a, lot of competition where we should compete and we should be number one, number two, and all that. One day, this was last few years, this is a COVID time, which I've started thinking, where we got some time to really think, and everyone got time, and I started thinking that there is no point, fighting to see that, we're in this market and fighting. People who like you will come to you. Okay. Yeah. And this is what happens, when you get a client, it's not that the client is looking for a company. Client is looking at you. And not many people realize that, because there is way of your working, way of your style, way of your knowledge, and the knowledge and other things. So people give you work with your confidence, and people give you work with your knowledge. Got it. Sometimes people fail. Sometimes, you progress and succeed. So don't look at that, EY or KPMG, Deloitte, and others are getting work. It's basically those partners, the individuals are getting the work. So I'm not propagating their work, but I'm saying that the competition landscape, people have to understand from that side.
Okay, you also mentioned, thank you for that. You mentioned something interesting. COVID got you thinking. I was just wondering, is the relationship between the recent COVID period we've almost gone out of and the interest in ESGs?
Yeah, because I feel that with so much of technology, so much of advancement of medical science and others, I have never seen the world shut down. Mm-hmm. But world was shut for many months. Different countries were shut. Why this is happening? Because our concentration on the environment, on the social and the governance point of view, it's not what has to be. Because when it comes to that, we are very, very focused on environment, but sometimes we are not caring about the people, or we are only caring about the businesses. I've just written a chapter in a book on which is a Springer publication, and I have written about various types of leaderships styles, and I've described that why countries like Taiwan, New Zealand, Finland, I've compared it with women-headed countries and with men-headed companies, that those women-headed countries gave more emphasis on the people, less on economy. Okay. And somewhere, the men-headed companies are very, very bothered about the economy, business, GDP, and they didn't do so well. So there is a comparison. That's why I'm saying that everyone is so different.
Okay. As mentioned in the beginning, you've worked in over 56 countries. That book on leadership, is that also based on your first-hand experience in working in all those countries?
Partly yes and partly no. But all these countries, if you look at Africa, was so unique, so different. If you talk about Ethiopia, Eritrea, Kenya, you will see that all these countries have very different, you can say, different people and a pride. If you go to Ethiopia, they always feel that they were never colonized. Because they have that pride and the proud moment, and that shows on their face, it shows on their body, the whole culture of Ethiopia. So various countries have various different dimensions, different way of life and other things. So if you move to Southeast Asia, then, you have Thailand, very different. It works differently. Then we have, Myanmar, we have Indonesia and others. So my thinking is that each country is very unique in its way, how it is. But what we have to learn from them is culture. And for us, when I travel, I look at the culture. I was working in Finland. I started learning Finnish because I wanted to understand the Finnish values.
That's
You
quite
know,
a hard language to learn. Do you have
yeah,
time?
because no, people say that,
Yeah.
but the thinking is for me why that was important. If I can take 30 seconds, because I could not understand the culture they had if I didn't know their language. Why was for them honesty or straightforwardness or frankness important. In Finland,
Mhm.
from transparency index point of view, Finland is number one. It's
Yeah.
basically from the whole corruption perspective and all that. If you leave your wallet, nobody, you will get that in the box.
Yeah.
So my thinking is there is a value system, and to understand that value system, you have to learn language and all that. So the various countries are a very unique connotation.
Okay, so does that mean like what I see a lot of international travelers do is they learn the basics to say hello, goodbye, yes, no. Is that a good start, or from a business perspective, you really have to dig in deeper? What's your advice on
you
that?
know it, it is a good start, but the thinking is if you have to understand the people, and you have to really understand what they are thinking and you are thinking, if you have to do business or run organizations in those countries, you really need to understand the basics in terms of the basic understanding of it.
Okay, personal experience. I've what I've noticed in my travels around the world, I that the minute you show real interest in the other person, it actually supersedes the cultural differences because they recognize I'm looking at what we have in common. And
Yeah.
then we can have a meaningful exchange, a meaningful conversation, interaction. And then the fact that we might have a language barrier, you could say, in my experience, it's not the big problem. It's the big problem is not wanting to listen, not wanting to learn, which sometimes so being that almost arrogant person walking into the room and say, "Look, I know what's happening here, so you have to listen to me rather than I listen to you."
Yeah. No, but Fritz, what happens is I'm talking about 2005 and 6 and
Okay.
7. That's the time. In Finland, when I was in Helsinki, a lot of people didn't speak English.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay. And this happens when in some of the countries where your language is not, English is not your basic language. Okay. I'm not saying I know 54 or 56 languages, but the thing is that there are sometimes you get really intrigued or you really start feeling that, why this country is so different than others, because when you travel, there are some countries which gives you that kick, or you can say that the intrinsic value to say that, why this behaves differently. And that was my, I can say, the tipping point for me to learn the language. And apart from what I know in Bengali and English, Hindi, and all those languages, Nepali. I've stayed in Nepal also, so that's also another language which, when people used to speak, I used to feel that, how are they speaking, and it resonates from that. So these are things which you learn and all that. So that's the love for
Yeah.
languages.
That's okay. That's a good. You need to have a love for languages. That's first, but it's also, I mean, it demonstrates your thinking. I appreciate that. Now, before we move on, I want to briefly also spend a little bit of time on your work as a board member of these organizations already mentioned. Um, in all cases, it's about supporting the less privileged in society, children, handicapped people. Um, and more, and women. Um, what's the trigger? What's driving you to spend so much time on supporting these foundations?
So, so initially when I started working with organizations, the whole thinking was that one, my learning. I want to spread, and whatever I've learned and gained knowledge in, I want to help others to know about that. That's my first trigger. The second is that I have always been pushing boards to get young people,
Mhm.
because you also know that all over the world, the not-for-profit world is run by, I should not say old, but
Yeah.
I should say people above 60. Okay. Uh, and this is what this is happening is that this kind of a work, I will not again use the word job, because it's not a job, it's the work and the passion, is people join in but they don't leave. They live till their death, because the board seats they don't vacate. So I'm being very candid and frank with you. What I brought in, what I'm trying to see is that we bring in new blood, we bring in new people in onto the board, so
Yeah.
that we have better oversight. We bring new, you can say, fresh ideas, fresh thinking to see the problem, because the problem is the same. We have been fighting about poverty, we are fighting about illiteracy, women economic empowerment, old age, and all that. These are all problems which we have inherited, maybe. Okay. But nobody is finding the solution. Why? It's a question, to so many people. Why we are still struggling? Because the reason is sometimes we are not thinking, you can say, I'm not using the word again, out of the box, but you are not thinking differently or disruptively. You know, today, if you look at the biggest, room chain is Airbnb. It's not Marriott or Hilton or others. It is disruptive thinking. Uber created this entire thing with no cars. It's a technology platform. And I can talk about so many things about your country created bookings.com, which is basically unique and all that. My thinking here is that we are using the same minds and same techniques to combat these issues, which are old issues. But we need new people to start and brainstorm on the issues which are very, very old, to see how we can eradicate or replace those issues with that, because there are new issues coming in. We had not, 20 years back, nobody spoke about climate change. Today we have issues which are bigger,
Yeah.
and they will be displacing more people than wars, or you can say other things. So we have different issues which are coming in the world.
Okay. Hearing this story, I mean, I really have to ask you, what inspires you? Where do you draw your inspiration from?
Humanity. Because this is such a, humans have survived in everything, and I think we will survive today also and tomorrow also. And that's the inspiration, that how should we work together, and we have to be more purposeful and purpose led.
Okay.
We have to leave the individualistic thinking. We have to have more cooperative thinking in the world and with all of us. If we start thinking that way, I think we will make a better place for yourself and for the world, which will be there. So I'm very, very focused on creating that. And that's what my trigger, and that's my passion, to connect with people, to
Okay.
be with people, and all that.
Okay. The way you describe it, then to get to that very big, hairy, audacious goal, which you just described, you've described the end result, the North Star. But how do you, if that's your definition of success, being able to achieve that, can you identify, I would say, intermediate milestones so you know you're on the right track? So how do you recognize you're on the right track achieving those goals?
So if I sit on every Saturday, I see what I have achieved in this week. My
Hmm.
achievement is not in numbers of profit; it's number of how many people I have helped, and I've become, or I've been meaningful in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Or it can be clients. I'm not saying that I'm a God's man.
Yeah.
It can be clients. It can be your subordinates, your team members, your family, your everyone. So it's you have to somewhere give 10 or 15, 20 minutes to yourself to see that what have you achieved. If you feel that you are still purposeful in this entire thinking of it, I feel that you have achieved or you are achieving your intimate, or you can say immediate goal post or the milestones. Then you see what and also start thinking about why you are here. Sometimes people have to really think about it, and that's why I'm again saying that. So from a weekly to a monthly to a quarterly to a annual thing, this entire continuum you have to see, because time does not stay the same, Fritz.
Yeah.
We never thought about COVID. We were in a spree to going ahead, but what has happened was nature had its view to break it, and these are good, I can say, the lessons which we are all learning from. But the goal is clear. Be purposeful for your clients. Be purposeful for your team members. Be purposeful for your family, and more importantly, be purposeful for your universe. And that's what the whole trajectory and the line which I work with, because family definitely is important, but when you create an ecosystem around you, that ecosystem has to support you, and you have to be meaningful or purposeful for the whole ecosystem asset, because they also have aspirations from you. And if you fail, the whole ecosystem fails.
Hey, Parul, those are great words to end this interview with. We're almost done. Actually, I want to ask you one last question, if I may.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about how you want the world to remember you?
Legacy. It's
What is your legacy?
Legacy is ABWCI. So ABWCI, as we are in 40 countries and we are moving into 196 countries by 2024.
Yeah.
That's a legacy I personally want to leave behind, an organization which will be remembered for centuries, because it's a virtual global chamber of commerce for women.
Yeah.
Nobody thought that somebody can create that.
We haven't discussed that. So let's briefly end with discussing why that should be, you want that to be your legacy. What is it and what do you want to do with it? What you hope to achieve?
Yeah. So legacy, why I say ABWCI is because it's a network anybody can join. Okay. Anybody can leave. It's an open platform. You get opportunities of business, collaboration, working together, events, so many things that it's like a box which opens up with so much of opportunities for everyone, but for women. And I feel that as globally, somewhere I feel women are not getting their due. Still, I'm being very frank. Yeah. More and more they should get, because they have invested a lot in humankind. Okay. And that's what I really, I'm working towards it, on investing my own money, investing my time, that ABWCI will be one of the largest and the biggest platform on this earth. And that's what I want to leave behind as a fulfilled dream. And so that's what the dream I'm aspiring and I'm working on.
Parul, I want to thank you so much. There's so much we've covered, so much we've just touched upon. Your book on leadership, all the foundations you're part of, and that last one, how we can help women to be more successful as entrepreneurs in this world. So we'll make certain that people watching this will have access to read in that, providing the right link. So again, Parul, I want to thank you so much for sharing your insights with us for the Brand Called You today. Thank you.
Thank you, Fritz, for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.